says recording. And there's going to be a little bit of feedback, but that's all right. We'll deal with it. All right. Wait, you want me to do a quick introduction? Or you?
Yep.
What do
Yes,
you want me to
please.
do? Okay. My name is Mark Sargent. I'm a flat Earth advocate. I've been doing this online for the last 11 years. Started in 2015. Made a series of videos on YouTube called Flat Earth Clues, which basically said that we are not living on this tiny little spinning ball that's covered in a little bit of water and even little, tiny bit of atmosphere flying through an impossible universe. You are living in a building created by God, created not that long ago, probably, and you're not the first people to rent this apartment, and the world is flat. You're living in a terrarium, a planetarium, a snow globe. All the continents basically look the same except for Antarctica. I know the spotlight's screwing everything up, but the North Pole's in the center. Most of the continents are splayed out on the outside, and then Antarctica, which should be a snowy continent similar to Australia, is actually a giant landmass that encircles us like the edge of a lake or pond. And since this is a Christian school, let's I'll make a couple quick recommendations. I didn't do this to your teacher earlier, which was there's a wonderful website done by one of our people called testingtheglobe.com, which is straight up Bible only, and he did that at least 9 years ago, and he said that the Bible is a flat earth book. And we can get into it if you want, as we're going along. I know enough chapter and verse to make my way. And yeah, that's what we're looking like, and it's been a heck of a journey. The social media, as you know, has embraced this in a lot of different ways. If you guys went on YouTube recently, you probably saw a lot of people that go against it. That's mostly for the clicks, which is if you go against flat earth and try to make it look as silly as possible, you're going to get a whole bunch of hits and metrics. So keep that in mind. But yeah, we've been doing this for, again, 11 years, conferences, I don't know how many meetups, and it's been a wild ride. And I also, one more thing, which was because there wasn't time. This is one of the few classes, by the way, that wasn't required to watch the Netflix documentary that was put out in 2018 called Behind the Curve. If you want to find it, I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but you can definitely find it on Amazon. And it's a great little example of a snapshot of what the flat earth community was like. So there you go. Most of what I do when I talk to students is, because there's a lot of questions, is briefly talk and then open the floor up, because I'm sure you guys have a bunch of questions. So I don't know if I'll be able to hear them really clearly, so speak up or if your teacher's going to read it. If I can't hear it, by the way, I'll just say, hey, can somebody repeat that, depending on what your voice type is like, okay? You guys catch all that? Why can't I hear anything? Uh-oh. Oh, your mic is muted, by the way. I know you probably did that to reduce feedback. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. We got it.
Yeah.
We're ready. Thank you.
Yep. Wait, ready for what?
For you to go.
For me to go what? I've been talking for the last.
Do you want us to start asking questions right now?
Yeah, please. Let's do it. Because I know how much time we got. We have what, 35 minutes, give or take? Yeah,
Yep.
let's just open the floor to questions.
Roger.
Who's got the first question? And I won't be able to see. I know I can kind of see you, but your screen's really small, so that's deliberate.
Okay. The question is, how does gravity work on the flat Earth?
Perfect. Okay. Gravity, mainstream science will tell you this, and I will be picking on science quite a bit while I'm talking, because science has turned basically into their own religion, which I call scientism. And that is, you can ask any mainstream scientist, any of them, and they will say, we can't tell you what gravity is. We can only tell you what it does. We can only tell you the symptoms of gravity, which is you drop something, it falls to the floor, it appears to be gravity. However, they can't replicate it. They can't tell you why exactly it happens, but since it's repeatable, it's under science. Neil Tyson, the world's most famous media scientist currently, he says that basically that gravity is this magical molecular force that pulls things down to the center of a ball, and we say that gravity is just this magical molecular force that pulls down things down to the center of this right here. And the bigger question for me, for people that want to know about gravity, is if gravity is so strong, then how does it hold the air? How does it not hold the air in things like vacuum chambers and anything involving small vacuum chambers here on the ground, and yet in space our atmosphere isn't blown away? Because you remember, I don't know if you teach physics there, but pressure cannot exist next to non-pressure without a barrier. Find me an example ever where you hit a pin into a balloon and it doesn't pop, right? Or the air doesn't come rushing out really, really fast if it's a weird, fabric of the balloon. That never ever happens. And the same thing should happen with our atmosphere. If our atmosphere is bordering a vacuum, then our atmosphere should be gone. And tell me why that doesn't happen. And the only answer you have is gravity. It's like, okay, because I could put a vacuum chamber above my head right now, on the second floor of this building, and pop it, and the air will instantly rush up. It's not like the movies. It's really, really, really fast. In fact, look up a wonderful video. I know we're recording this. You'll be able to play it back later. Look up a wonderful video on YouTube called Vacuum versus Steel Rail Car. It's only 10 seconds long. And it's absolutely brilliant because it's a steel rail car. They apply a vacuum to the inside of it, and the whole thing just implodes instantly in a fraction of a second. All right, next question.
Sophie?
Why are you guys sitting so far back?
They're sitting more to the front, actually.
Oh, okay.
The laptop is in the back.
All right. So what's the question?
What is the strongest single piece of evidence that convinced you that the Earth is flat? Or were you raised with that theory?
No, I was absolutely not raised in that theory. In fact, I was probably in the deepest hole you could probably be in when it comes to this. Not only was a big fan of world maps, and I covered my place with wonderful framed things of world maps, but I also collected antique globes. I was severely into it. And plus, I was a huge fan of Star Wars and Star Trek and Stargate and Battlestar Galactica. Any space shows, loved them all. When I got into this, I'll tell you the two things. The thing that got me into it wasn't the same as most of the people. Most of the people that get into Flat Earth get in because of long distance photography, which is we can see way too far. The HD cameras, you couldn't have done this 30 years ago. HD cameras now allow us to see objects that are way further in the distance than possible. In fact, there's a great video on my channel called, I didn't make it. It was initially built by somebody else, and I just narrated it, which is called Why This Flat Earth Video is So Important. You'll find it there. Just type in the word important when you're searching on my channel. And it shows, for example, oil rigs off of California, one at 6 miles and one at 10 miles. And you line them up, and you got to remember the curvature, if there's a curve, which supposedly science can measure, it's 8 inches per mile, otherwise known as 8 inches per mile squared. Forget about the math. It just means that eventually whatever you see is going to go over the hill. That's not the case. Not only the oil rigs not obscured by any curvature whatsoever at 6 and 10 miles, and they absolutely should, but the horizon can be clearly seen in the distance beyond those oil rigs. So unless you're going to tell me that it's a perfect mirage and the curvature is some invisible thing that nobody can see there, then I'm not buying it. The short version is nobody can see the curvature anywhere. We cannot find it, especially over water, because water lays flat. The thing that got me into Flat Earth wasn't the curvature. Funny enough, it was the Antarctic Treaty, which was ratified in 1959, which says that no corporation from any country can set up shop in Antarctica ever. And you're probably wondering why. It's like, well, because if Antarctica is something like this, then you do not want people out there. So the only people that are out there right now in Antarctica are military and military scientists. Yes, you can spend $15,000 and drive. Wow. fly out to Antarctica, and I mean you could drive actually most of the way, all the way on to the tip of South America, but eventually you will have to fly there. But the Antarctic Treaty says nobody can set up shop there ever. Military scientists are there. You can take a tourist trip there, very, very expensive, the most expensive place you can go in the world. And they'll take you to the coast, and then you can take pictures with penguins, but that's about it. And by the way, Antarctica is owned by no one. Tell me a piece of real estate anywhere in the world where it's not owned by someone, let alone an entire continent. And why? Why would you do it? The whole place just screams go away. So, and by the way, you can look up, if you guys want, I can send it to your teacher, or you can just look it up. There's a PDF file. The Antarctic Treaty is easy to find online. And by the way, it's not even up for debate until the year 2041, which doesn't seem like a long time from now. But in 1960, yeah, that's a long time. Why? And by the way, it's the only unbroken treaty in the history of treaties. America loves breaking treaties. Ask the Native Americans. Anyway, go ahead.
The next question is, does the flat earth theory necessitate that the planets are also flat?
No, not at all. Great question. So no, in this case, if you're looking at this, what are the planets to something like this? No different than a planetarium. And I know you guys are in North Dakota. Is that right?
Yes.
North Dakota. That I don't know where the nearest planetarium for you guys would be, or you guys even care to go to a planetarium. Planetarium, if you don't know what that is kind of like a small domed stadium where you lie on your back and they turn the lights off and they show you star constellations and perhaps the moon, right? But nowadays they can show planets and stuff like that, right? Well, if you can see a planet, if I can see Jupiter on the ceiling of a planetarium and it looks pretty realistic, why can't I land on it? Well, because it's just a light on a ceiling. Well, who's to say when you don't walk out of that building, you're just in a much, much bigger building, which is what we're saying. Again, if you guys study the arts, all the world's a stage and we are just players in it. That's Shakespeare. Probably a flat earther.
All right. The next question is, what do you think of the photos of Earth taken by Artemis 2 and all other spaceships?
Good one. And by the way, that's the first time I've gotten an Artemis question since they got back. All right. So everybody, Apollo, we start with Apollo, which goes all the way back to the 1960s, the American space program, which was, if you guys, and I know this predates you guys by a long time, which is America supposedly went to the moon in the late 1960s and the early 1970s, and then in 1972 they just quit for no apparent reason. It's like, we just don't care anymore. And then 54 years later, they decide to go, with Artemis 2, which I predicted last year, even though they've been kicking the can down this road for decade after decade. I knew in 2026 they were going to go, because you guys probably already know, America 250, go team, American dominance. We're, this is our big year. We're going for broke on all sorts of stuff. So faking the space program this year was way, way tougher to do in 1969. And by the way, that's where I start, which is the entire moon mission and everything that has to do with Apollo was faked because they could get away with it. America, remember, after World War II, most of the world was still, picking up from the ashes of the devastation, except for America. So America went for broke, and they said, "Oh, hey, let's do something that no one would be able to prove one way or the other." So they said, "Oh, we're going to go to the moon." Now the Russians were also in that. You can also look this up, called the space race. You all know what the term astronaut is. The Russians called their guys cosmonauts. And you can look it up, type in space race 1960s and click on images. You'll see all the magazine covers of the Americans versus the Soviet Union. And yet, when the Americans supposedly landed in 1969, the Russians just quit. They just quit, walked off the track. And it's like, what happens? The Russians don't quit for anything, for any reason. And that's not how it would have gone. It would have been, the Russians would have built a small base, we would have built a bigger base, and we've gone back and forth until finally Time magazine would have said, has the Cold War reached the moon? If you guys want to watch a wonderful series on exactly how it could have gone, and they stole this idea, it's absolutely for me, I don't really care, which is it's on Apple TV. It's a television show. I think they're in their 5th season, called For All Mankind, and it covers what the space race should have happened, how it should have gone. In fact, they even started it with the Russians landing on the moon first, and then we went back and forth until exactly what then there was just, we're just going to establish bases on the moon. So Artemis No, it was absolutely fake. It was a tough thing to do. I encouraged them to do it. I said, "Oh, you guys got to do this because why not, right? It's America 250." But and yet when you do a 10, here's the difference. In 1969 there was no internet. There was only 3 television channels. Media was very, very small by comparison. Faking a 10-day live space mission like that, they gave us the bare minimum, but they made all sorts of mistakes, and the old mistakes still apply. One would be, of course, what sort of shielding did they use for the capsule? Because the Van Allen radiation belts, look those up, super deadly. Only 3 things can stop radiation. One's lead, one's gold, one's a lot of water. You don't put any of those on some sort of spacecraft because it would make it really, really heavy. That didn't happen. No stars in space. Always a big one. 10 days, no stars in space. At least not on the video. Don't get me started on those still shots. But on the video, no stars in space. And you say, well, back in 1969, they could blame it on the exposure settings. Well, you guys know full well, your cameras on your phones right now have technology that's far, far greater. I mean, all you have to do is change any sort of the settings there, and you can show stars. And yet, and basically what I'm saying is our cameras are way better than the human eye. Way, way better. So why didn't they just tweak the settings at any given point during the 10 days and show the stars? Wouldn't do it. Can't do it because it would taint all the missions beforehand. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but hopefully you knew where I was going there.
All right. Thank you. Caleb?
How do you explain the 15 hour
15 degrees per hour drift? I know what you're saying. Yeah. So somebody, by the way, somebody watched Behind the Curve. You watch Behind the Curve?
I don't watch it. I just did.
You just did a thing on it? Okay. So we say, so the question is, so we can measure, and it's not a big secret. You can measure how far the stars travel in any given hour in the sky, and it's 15 degrees per hour, right? And any device that you can think of can measure this. The question is, what's moving? Well, and again, you can look this up. Go into Google and type in ancient cosmology or ancient cosmologies and click on images. Everybody drew the same thing. They drew this, or you know, a steeper version of it, like a snow globe version of it. This is way more shallow. This is more like a sports stadium. So, are the stars moving? We say the stars are moving, right? That's our position, and that's what every civilization said for a long, long time. And then science came along and said, "Oh no, the stars aren't moving. We're moving." So it's a push. It's like, yes, there's a 15 degrees per hour drift, but we say it's the stars, and science says it's the Earth. However, there's a couple more things you should probably throw in there. One is why, look this up if you ever get a chance. Why is there no parallax? And if you guys don't know what parallax is, when you're driving down the road, the mailboxes go really fast by you, the telephone poles not as fast, and then trees off in the distance go slow. That's parallax because things are in different distances. If you have a star that's 10 light years away and another one that's 10,000 light years away, you should have parallax, given that we are supposedly traveling sideways through the galaxy at 500,000 miles an hour and the Milky Way going around at 2 million miles an hour. You should see parallax somewhere in the sky, and yet we say to see the same star constellations. They never change. The zodiac has never changed in what, a couple thousand years minimum. How we've been tracking it. So why not? It's because the sky is static, absolutely freaking static. Go ahead, next one.
Okay.
Zach, go. Just a minute there, Mr. Sargent. Zach's coming.
Okay.
So when you were talking about like in the past, like that's a reason you believe in the flat earth theory is because people in the past have believed in that thing, right?
Sure.
That's technically a logical fallacy. That's appeal to tradition, basically saying like, since it's in the past, you're saying like, oh, people in the past have believed it and it's like been around for so long. That's why I believe it. So like, could you kind of elaborate on that point?
Sure. And by the way, are you on the debate team?
I just kind of study.
Yeah. No, I got it. All right. Let me clarify. I don't believe in it strictly, or even when I got into it, I didn't even know what ancient cosmologies was. When I got into it, I was trying to prove the globe in a court of law. Yes, you're absolutely right. Just because people in the past believed something doesn't mean it's true now. when everyone that gets into it now does not look at the past stuff. They go into it the same way I did, which is, okay, everyone gets into the flat earth because they're trying to disprove it. They're either trying to shut down this version, or they are trying to prove the globe in a court of law. And after 9 months, I gave up trying to prove the globe in a court of law because, well, there's nothing to go off of. In fact, prove to me that the world is a globe. In fact, I'll give you a George Orwell quote. But before I do that, prove to me that the world is a globe without using NASA as an example, without using a space program as an example. George Orwell in 1946. He said, and he wasn't a flat earther, but he was talking about how people believe science just because we always sell ourselves short, and science is obviously the smartest people in the room, therefore we should, go along with what they say. And he goes, if you went to anyone on the street and asked them how they knew the world was a globe, they would just say, oh, I know, it's a given, we've known this, it's a thing, right? And it's like, really? How do you know? Because remember, this was 1946. How did everybody in the world know in 1946 that it was a globe? There was no space program. NASA wasn't even founded until 1958. It's not that you know, it's that you've been told. Nobody in this room owns spaceships. Nobody can go up high enough to see it for themselves. Nobody's left orbit. And by the way, that's a whole nother thing, which is like no spacecraft has ever turned its camera back towards Earth, ever. I have Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Artemis, to the freaking Tesla Roadster in space, and watch the Earth form into a globe. But to that effect, science has a horrible tendency to get away with stuff and then never apologize for it later. They don't believe in a lot of things that we find, and then when we find them, they still refuse to believe them until they absolutely, I'll use a small version really quick. You guys, I don't know if you study this that much. The giant panda was a myth. Science absolutely said, no way, there's no way that could be real. The giant anaconda was a myth. The giant squid, why giant things science doesn't believe in, I don't know. Or look up a fun thing, if you've never looked it up, look up the platypus. That is such a great example. Oh, no, I've got one more word for you on top of that. The platypus, by the way, when they brought live ones into the lab and had them crawling around and making squeaking noises in front of the scientists, they still wouldn't believe it. They thought they were manufactured surgically by pranksters, right? But my biggest one, and I'll throw this at you, which is the coelacanth fish, coelacanth, coelacanth fish, big old prehistoric fish with a lot of, not very attractive, with a lot of extra fins, right? This fish supposedly was extinct for 70 million years. Every scientist in the world, every single one would have bet the freaking farm that this thing was extinct. We have fossils showing this stupid fish, right? And then the British Navy caught one in a net off of South Africa in 1940. And then another one off of Madagascar, another one off of Mozambique. It's like, oh, hey, look, they're swimming all around Africa. How did science get it absolutely, completely wrong? Because they just did. They make mistakes like anyone else, but we don't own up to it. They don't own up to it. So what happened in this case, they had to reinvent all sorts of certain terms. You can look up the coelacanth fish. It's like, oh, no, it's a living fossil. It's an evolutionary state of stasis, blah, blah, blah. And so why do I bring that up? Because people ask me, what other conspiracies you believe in? Do I believe in the Loch Ness Monster? If you guys don't know what that is, are there old prehistoric swimming dinosaurs in some of the deep lakes in different parts of the world, like England, for example? And I say, yeah, I do believe in it. Well, why? And they go, well, you shouldn't believe in it. Why? Why not? Well, because it's been extinct for at least like 100 million years. Oh, you mean like that fish over there? That fish that you were absolutely wrong on. That's fine. You figured that out. But the Loch Ness, you're pretty solid on that, even though the fish, every scientist in the world was wrong. So there you go. My rant.
Thank you. We have a personal question that's coming up. They are asking if you're comfortable sharing if you're a Christian, because you had said that you can rattle off the Bible verses in support of it.
Yeah,
so do you believe in the Bible?
Yes, I grew up on Whidbey Island in the northwest corner of the United States. I can see Canada from here. I grew up in a strong evangelical Christian home. The church was Christian Missionary Alliance in Langley, Washington. And it was, again, in the 80s. It was a big deal. It was one of those great communities where when the cool kids got into church, everybody got into church. And it wasn't just a Sunday thing, it was Wednesdays and Saturdays and summer camp and vacation Bible school and Camp Malibu up in Canada and so on and so on. We had a great youth pastor, and it was a lot of fun. When I got off the island and went to school, because again, very sheltered environment, I didn't even realize there were other religions, to be honest, and was exposed to a lot of stuff. And then when I started playing video games for a living, I got into the tech world, and I really fell away from the church, because the tech world does not go well, does not mix well. It's like, no, Sundays, oh no, we're playing Warcraft on Sundays. We are definitely, or whatever it is at the time. We're not going to church. When I got into flat Earth, my position on religion as a whole and my just spirituality in general was amplified, which was, if this was built, then it was created. And if it was created, well, then we're talking about a creator. You can only go down one of two paths: either an older civilization that's much more powerful than ourselves, or the divine. And at that point, and I'm not trying to be, lighthearted when I say this, but did God build this? Does God maintain this, or does God subcontract out the work? I don't know, but there's obvious evidence of civilizations that have been here before us, and they're still hanging around with us now. I mean, there's the sunken cities off of Japan, sunken cities off of India, Machu Picchu, Pumapunku, Bimini Road, the real pyramids, the Bosnian pyramids, all sorts of remnants of civilizations. I think they rise and fall. Does that discredit the Bible in any way? No, not in the slightest. I'm a big believer in the Bible, and the Bible, again, testingtheglobe.com, proves a flat Earth. My friend who called me up, he goes, "Oh no, it's a flat Earth book." He goes, "There's only one verse that even begins to hint at some sort of sphere, and that's Isaiah 40:22, he who sitteth upon the circle of the earth." But if you know anything about the ancient Hebrew, circle is not the same as ball or globe or sphere. And how could Jesus and the devil see the whole earth from that high peak, by the way, when they were up there? There's all sorts of fun stuff. Keeping the sun and the moon in the sky, for an extra day so that more enemies could be slain. Genesis, the firmament mentioned there. The Tower of Babel reference, which is a great one, even though it doesn't prove a flat Earth. I think it's great. A great little story in Genesis about how the first civilization tried to reach the ceiling. Why would they do that if it was a globe? That building would be going nowhere. That would just be a toothpick on an apple. But that's not the case. I think they figured it out and tried to build a bridge to heaven, and then it's like God's like, no, we're not doing that.
Okay, now the question of the hour, because I know we're running out of time, but I'm getting sheets and sheets of questions here.
Okay.
Why? It's very expensive to, this has to be one of the biggest cons ever. Why? Why would they go through that? What are they gaining from
Got it. Okay.
convincing everybody the world is a sphere?
Why hide it? I'll try to be quick. In 1947, the Roswell thing, and I know this predates you guys a lot, freaked a whole bunch of people out. So they had to backtrack from that. Alien craft crashes in New Mexico. And then the Pentagon had to walk it back because people were freaking out. And that was just a stupid little spaceship that crashed in the desert. Imagine if you came back to people. Remember, we didn't even discover, what I'm saying is this thing wasn't even really discovered until about 1960. Not for sure. We didn't know. We probably had maps and models lying around somewhere, but we didn't know for sure until 1960. If 1960, you really think you're going to tell this to the public, that they're not on a globe anymore, that they're living on some sort of building, a snow globe? There's three things that would happen. It's not what they stand to gain, it's what they have to stand to lose, which is academically, every library and every university in every country would have to be completely retooled. Because there's so many things. I mean, forget about astronomy and astrophysics. Those things have to go out the window for a long, long time. But anything else, biology, hydrology, archaeology, you name it, anything with an ology, those have to be retooled from the ground up, right? Economically, you'd have to suspend world markets for months and months until you figure out what to do with that, because industries would change. But the big one would be religion, which is, you're talking about releasing something to the public, to the churches. Remember, there's 5 major religious houses in the world: Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity, right? And you're asking, those 5 groups to hold back and not beat science over the head, even though science has been just crushing on religion for centuries. and those questions would never end. They'd come back at science would never recover. It's like, oh, okay, so you were wrong about something really important. What else you wrong about? Evolution, carbon dating, the Big Bang, dark matter. It just would never ever stop. And so yeah, it's not what they stand to gain, it's what they stand to lose. And honestly, I wouldn't have told people in 1960 either. Now, sure. Now I think people could take it, but not back then.
Okay, can we go back to when we were talking about the gyroscopes?
Yeah.
And you brought up the stars, which wasn't the question that I asked. I asked, how do you explain the mechanical gyroscopes that were used in Behind the Curve, and how they proved that there was a 15-degree spin on Earth, not the stars?
So how the gyroscopes prove the globe?
They were measuring the 15-degree shift of the Earth.
Again, that's the argument. The gyroscopes all the gyroscopes do is prove motion. It doesn't prove that the motion is happening on Earth. It just means that there's some sort of relative motion between the sky and the Earth. Unless you're talking about the plane gyroscopes. If we're talking about the plane gyroscopes, well, those are absolutely in our favor. You can. I've got pilots that I've talked to, a number of them. In fact, one of them got fired from KLM because she's like, oh no, the instruments absolutely do not prove that it's a globe at all. Ask any pilot. When they're up at the front of that cockpit, absolutely flat on all sides.
So if the Earth is flat, how does the sun rise in the east, set in the west? And then what about all of the constellations? If the Earth was flat, wouldn't the sun be shining everywhere all at the same time?
Okay, we'll do the second question first, which is you can barely even see the little tiny arms here on the sun and the moon, right? So the sun, the reason why it doesn't shine everywhere at the same time is that the sun is very, very small. And I'll give you an example of that. The sun and the moon, even though the moon is supposedly only 2,000 miles wide and the sun is hundreds of thousands of miles wide, the moon fits perfectly in front of it because it's exactly the same ratio, closer and diameter, right? Which is weird enough coincidence in itself. Also, the moon, we never see the other side of the moon. I know they call it the dark side of the moon, but it's actually just the far side of the moon, which is the far side of the moon is completely locked in to where doesn't even turn a quarter of a degree in an hour. So the sun is really, really small. You can look this up on Light and Perspective, which is the sun works absolutely. In fact, I come from the game world. I can tell you exactly how we do it, which is the sun is really, really close and really, really small. It looks identical to where if it was 93 million miles away and really, really big. There is no difference. In fact, if you want to go down that road, the corpuscular rays, where all the rays of the sun, you can look at if the sun was 93 million miles away, you would not get corpuscular rays. The rays would absolutely come in parallel everywhere. What was the first part of that question?
How does the sun rise in the east?
Okay, perfect. I got to get this one out because there's a wonderful app out there called the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, which has some great videos on this. David Weiss does fantastic sun videos, and that is the sun is not setting anywhere. It's just going off into the distance and fading away, but it's so bright that you don't notice the difference. Sorry. Water. You can look this up if you get a chance. Don't forget, again, this is basic physics. What we're breathing in right now, what I'm talking to you through is not nothing, right? It's only 99% transparent. It's mostly nitrogen. It's 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. Forget about the trace gases for now, which means over time, that will be thick, get thicker and thicker and thicker until finally it'll blot out everything, including the sun. A short version of that would be in a swimming pool. You cannot see the other side of a swimming pool if it's long enough. And that's just because water, the density of water will obstruct vision. Same thing with the atmosphere. You're just breathing in a really almost transparent version of fog. But after hundreds of miles, it will be thick enough to block out even the sun. We've got wonderful videos to where the sun goes off into the distance, right, with filters on it, and then sits there for a while, and then just evaporates into the distance of the atmosphere. So it doesn't set at all.
We have a follow-up question. Then how do you explain solar eclipses?
Solar eclipses. Okay, perfect. In fact, that's a good one because I can throw that question right back at him, which is okay. So if the moon is 2,000 miles wide, by the way, 2,000 miles wide. That's what they say it is. Why is the eclipse shadow, and I've been to a couple of them now, why is the eclipse shadow only 100 miles wide or less? We can't replicate that in real life down here. That'd be like you walking next to a building on a sunny day and your shadow goes down to the size of an action figure. It's never ever happened. Your shadows are either actual size when it's high up above you, or they get longer, you know, as the sun goes one way or the other. So the eclipse shadow, like, no, the eclipse shadow is completely wrong. It's one of my major bullet points, which is it's too small. It absolutely is too small, and it doesn't make sense when it comes to the lunar eclipse. So when hopefully I'm calling that one right, where the sun is here, the Earth is here, and then the moon is over here, right? So the Earth is blocking. Well, remember, if a 2,000 mile wide object, the moon, shrinks down to, you know, this tiny little 100 mile shadow, then the Earth, which is only 8,000 miles wide, should shrink down to only a couple hundred miles, right? And so the moon should turn into a giant eyeball, and it doesn't. You know, there should be this big black spot that goes across the moon. Instead, it's this washed out red. How does that work exactly? Because it's the same optics, right? Same space, Earth, sun, moon. You can reverse it. It's like, why is it completely different when it's the Earth? Don't know.
So another follow-up question.
Yeah.
Or no, not a question, a statement. So we got the shadows, right? Shadows. There's the umbra and penumbra, right?
Yeah.
The umbra is like the dark part, and the penumbra is like the lighter part, right? So down on Earth, we are like really close distance, right, from like lights and like shadows and stuff.
Right.
And so when you have a shadow, you got like a lighter part and a darker part. So because the sun is super stinking far away and large, and how the moon is also closer to us, the light shines on the moon, and its umbra shrinks down because the sun's so big and has like, but it's
no, I got you, and that's a great textbook answer, and there has to be a textbook answer for this. I'll throw, you know, I agree to disagree, but I'll throw one at you. Look this up if you get a chance. There's some wonderful videos on this on my channel. Again, if the sun, because we'll use the biblical thing, which is the sun is just basically a giant light bulb, and the moon is an cold laser light. Look up, see if you can find anything in mainstream science why the moon is generating a cold laser light that we can measure with a $20 point-and-click thermometer. Meaning, if it is cooler in the shade in the sun, right? It's 80 degrees in the shade, or in the sunlight, it's 70 degrees in the shade. Why is it warmer in the moon shade? Meaning, if it's 50 degrees on a cold night, right? And why is it 60 degrees in the moon shade? Anywhere. We can test this all day long. In fact, we can get up to like a 13-degree swing. Now, does that mean that the Earth is flat? No, it doesn't, but it absolutely destroys the relationship between the sun and the moon, because as you know, we've all been told, oh, the moon is just lit up because of the sun. Okay, then why is it generating a negative temperature? Science won't even touch that in a million years. So look that up if you get a chance.
Okay.
Roger, your turn. Yes.
I just have like a smaller question. Is the sun inside the atmosphere or outside the atmosphere?
That's great. That's a great question. I would say that it's inside, along with everything else. Look up high altitude atomic testing or high altitude nuclear testing, which is the Russians and the Americans from the late 50s and 1960s seemed to think that the barrier needed to be punched through, because that's what we do, right? It's like, you know, get the cannon, see if you can bust through the firmament. And for 4 years, that's all they did. Every test from 58 until I think 62 was atomic test was aerial. They were just firing basically paintballs at the ceiling, trying to figure out what this place was. So I would say the sun and the moon are both inside it, along with everything else. I don't think anything can get out. I think we're trapped in here.
Wouldn't that increase the greenhouse effect then?
Yes.
You go greater.
Yes. By the way, absolutely. I'm really stunned that people when they ask me about greenhouse, it's like they think I'm not going to believe in greenhouse gases because I'm a conspiracy guy. It's like, no. As a matter of fact, doesn't it make much more sense if it's a greenhouse, if it's an actual greenhouse, right? Instead of, because remember, if it's space, right? If it's just atmosphere and then the vacuum, everything's going to trail off into the vacuum of space. So why would it ever hang up there? The only way it would happen is if it was a pressurized system, which goes into the whole air pressure. How do we have air pressure at all? Why? It's air pressure, again, works way better in something like this than it does. And so does greenhouse gases.
Okay. So it's like, since nothing can nothing can escape the atmosphere, right? That's what you said.
Yeah.
Like, this kind of like off the topic I was just on. How do like meteors come in, and how do like space debris stuff?
Sure. I answer it with this. Look, I'm a big fan of meteors and everything in the sky, but everything in the sky, and I mean, from what I can tell, damn near everything. Sorry, I didn't mean to say damn. Which is, we are, everything is just the sky is just a highly decorated clock system that predates language. The bigger question, as far as meteors and comets, this blows me away, especially now, which is, remember, it's 2026. There are, 6 billion smartphones in the world. More people have smartphones than have running water. So why don't we have a single video? Nowhere is there a video of a meteor or a comet going from air to ground. Anywhere. And I mean air to ground, air to water, air to snow, air to mountain. You'd think that somebody on a cruise ship would run into it, or a fishing boat or something. Remember, 3/4 of the world is water. Never ever happens. Why is that? I think it's just part of the aerial show. Oh, you might have some that are brighter than others. There was one in Russia 10 years ago, which seemed to be pretty good. If that was a shooting star, not sure. But yeah, in fact, find me somebody that walks up to a crater that's still smoking, even if you couldn't track it all the way in. I mean, come on, there's meteor showers every year. Why doesn't it happen? I'm stunned by that.
All right, I can do some research on that.
Please do. You will not find it. You'll find one guy that has a ring cam on his deck that says some object the size of an apple supposedly punched through one of his chairs, and it's like, that's not. And then again, follow it from the sky. Follow a streak from the sky. Tell me if you can find one.
All right.
What else?
There is a question. A couple of people have asked that if the Earth is flat, then how come nobody has been able to reach the edge or fall off the edge? What happens if they fall off the edge?
Got it. Can you fall off the edge of this? Can you fall off the edge of a lake? No. In fact, Antarctica, even by mainstream standards, says that Antarctica is the highest continent on Earth, which is really, really weird, by the way. Not only is there a 200-foot wall of ice, when you get to the coastline, which isn't that high. I mean, it's not like Game of Thrones wall of ice, but it's still pretty high. But then the whole thing slopes up to about, the average height, supposedly, of Antarctica is like 14,000 feet. That's incredible. Because if you guys know anything about elevation, altitude sickness kicks in at about half that, like 7,000 feet. So no, water's not going anywhere. This place is very, very secure. So imagine if this, but the white part was sloped upwards. So no one's walking off the edge. And even if you could get to the edge out there, not even if you could get past the whole Antarctic Treaty and take a snowmobile team with a whole bunch of extra gas, you're not getting there. Even if you could make it to the edge, the firmament's going to stop you.
So that means if like you get past like the slope and everything, because like people trying to climb Mount Everest and stuff. So like if you can train yourself to like get past the ice walls and stuff.
If you could possibly, I mean, but think of what it would take to do it. I mean, you would have to have a lot of money, a lot of resources. You remember the whole place screams go away. There's no resources to go off of. There's no animal life or plant life. The penguins don't really count. And there's no old civilizations in the snow or anything. And there's government facilities everywhere. They will not, look it up if you get a chance. They will not let you just roam off into the ice. If you try to take a snowmobile team and go off in the distance, they will stop you. Trust me on this.
Mr. Sargent, our kids have asked to stay with you for another 20 minutes, or for the next period, actually. But our principal gave us the green light for 20 minutes. Is that okay?
Gee, I don't know. Sure.
Yeah. All right. Can we take just a 5-minute break so they can go and tell their teachers?
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect, thank you.
Go ahead.
Take a 5-minute break. Go tell your teachers and report back. You get another 20 minutes. Oh, sixth graders. Sixth grade. Would you go call them and tell them when they're
Wait, so really quick, so with
I knew I wasn't going to take a break. That's why I didn't put the microphone down. Go ahead.
So
you can go in
you
front
can't.
of the exec so you can see them.
All right. Well, I don't want.
Well, no, he can ask. It's fine.
So
Go ahead.
basically, like if you have all the money in the world and like you can get to the like side, you
Yeah.
can't fall out though because you can't escape the atmosphere, right? Or no?
Well, okay. If you're trying to game this out, if you're trying to game the system and seeing if there's a way out of it, first off, think about this. If the United States government got involved back in 1960, they are going to have layers of things to try to stop you, even if you were going to go down that road. And by that, I mean, especially nowadays, you would use algorithms to anyone that even started to produce. I've seen this with other expeditions. You start to go down this road, they are going to see you coming a mile away because they're going to be, the word's going to be out on the internet that you're going to be trying to do this, and they'll be waiting for you in some capacity or another. But the app, what are you hoping here? I mean, okay, I'll give you one. Here, I'll give you one. Let's say you could convince a pilot to bypass GPS and then risk his career. Basically, the guy, his career's over if he does this anyway, and then just go for broke with a plane that has a ton of fuel and try to make it to the edge. Even if you got out there and saw what the government saw in 1960, whatever that was, I think it was the edge. When you come back, who you telling? Who you going to exactly? You're going to try to post that on the internet? Because again, they will see that coming and they will scrub that in 2 seconds.
Okay.
Look, they've had way too much time to prepare for it. It's what I would have done.
Does like the atmosphere have like a feel to it, or is it kind of just like an invisible barrier? Because like
you mean what, like the firmament itself?
Yeah, like is it like a invisible barrier, or is it kind of like
Well,
a like press on it?
I mean, it's kind of dealer's choice on that one because could it be a unified field, an electromagnetic field, a heavy element, a heavy water, could be all sorts of fun things. But what we do know is the United States and the Soviet Union tried to bust through it with megaton weapons in the 1950s. I mean, it was really obvious what they were going to do because that's what men do, right?
Yeah.
It's like, get the missile. Do we have anything bigger? And after those first shots, if you can't blow through something, if you can't blow through a wall with megaton, you're not doing it. It's not going to happen. So at that point, they were just using medium range kiloton weapons, and I knew what they were doing. They were basically just paintballing the sky and trying to figure out the more or less the dimensions of that. And then after that, you try to do things with HARP. Look that up. Can you tweak the frequency and maybe get through that way? I think CERN can also be used in that. Why not try to open a portal and just portal your way through it?
Yeah.
And try that way, but I don't know. Maybe they pulled it off in some capacity, but this place looks pretty solid as far as if you were gonna. By the way, why would you even have just one of these, right? Why not? If you're God, why not just have a whole bunch of them, a big room full of these things in various stages of development? And but yeah, I think we're pretty much sealed in here, rock solid. And I think any of the older civilizations, when they talk about UFOs, which I don't think the class will probably ask, which is, what are UFOs? Are UFOs real? I go, yeah, I've seen them. You can go out with night vision all day long and watch these things. The sky is crawling with them.
Yeah.
The question is, where are they from? Are they from Mars and Venus and Saturn and all that stuff? No, they're probably just old versions of us that are stuck in here with us, and yet they're not, God's rules, where they're not allowed. We'll call it the Prime Directive, if you know Star Trek, which is you're not allowed to interact with whoever's running the surface. I think I think there are rules there. Sort of like, you know, I think the Tower of Babel civilization is probably hanging around. They're one of the first. It wouldn't surprise me if they were around, and they're, you know, you don't see them walking around Fargo.
Yeah. So with like all the globe stuff, do you kind of believe in like the multiverse theory, kind of? So like there's multiple versions of Earth, and there's like other.
Yes, but yes, there's a couple things there. One, I'm going to be hesitant to mention because it's a Christian school, but well, one is what multiverse. I would take it literally, which is why have multiple dimensions necessarily when you can have a whole bunch of these,
Yeah.
right? However, when it comes, I'm also a big believer that God was a programmer. And that's not being, you know, not trying to put myself in the mind of God or anything, but come on, you know, we'd be very egotistical to think that we invented the computer and programming.
Yeah.
And so look up something, again, I'm hesitant to mention this, but I got to, because it's been out there for a couple of years now. Look up the red laser experiment and DMT. Which is, you know, the drug culture has been experimenting in that. I'm not endorsing it in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that they can, if you're on it and you look at a broad beam red laser, you can actually see into some of the code. And that doesn't take away from God in any capacity. I still think that God is a programmer. So
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Anything else?
I just like one more small thing. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
So, do you think like the Mars rover would be like fake or something? Because
oh my God, dude. Okay, so the Mars rover, right? And this part slays me because it's not even physics. It is the lack of common mechanical engineering that people don't understand, which is if you drive your car long enough, your car battery will die.
Yeah.
Right. Car batteries only last 6-7 years. Even now, car 6-7 years. That's it. One day you will get into your car, it will click, and it will do nothing. The battery will just give up. It'll quit. It can only be charged and recharged so many times. Right.
Yeah.
What do you think the Mars rover runs off of? It runs off a rechargeable battery, not some special super battery that we invented. Remember, that thing's been there a long time. That thing went off. Look up the history of the Mars rover or whatever Mars rover they're using, which it was like, it ran for a while and then the battery supposedly died. And then supposedly it came back to life. And then they've been running around because people didn't care. NASA will look for, the Mars rover is absolute junk. It's only to put Mars in the crosshairs, even though NASA has said numerous times, and I've known, it's like you will never solve the fuel problem of Mars. Mm-hmm. Which is even unless we develop a unified field engine, which for private use, which we just can't, because that's the UFO engine, which basically turns everything into a UFO, which means there'd be no planes or trains or automobiles. It would just be the UFO culture.
Okay.
Without that, there is no way to go to Mars and come back. It is a one-way trip. You are going to die on Mars. Why would you ever want? Even if you could get to Mars, we cannot solve the fuel problem.
Yeah.
So the Mars rover is literally just so they could say, "Oh, here's what Mars looks like," and the pictures are horrible. We know they're shooting somewhere in Greenland. We just don't know exactly where, and it doesn't make any damn sense.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I have another question.
Sure.
So when you're on the ground, right? You look up in the sky and you see planes flying overhead, meaning their contrails and everything. Not talking about contrails, but I'm talking about their shape. So you usually see them and they go in like a curvature, like circle, the curvature, like path, right?
Yeah.
And also when you're like on a plane, you look down, you see like everything looks flat, right?
Yeah.
So why is it when I look up at a plane, it curves, even though when you're on the plane, everything looks flat?
When you look at a plane from the ground, this will be the first I've heard of it. You look at a plane and you say that the plane, when you're looking from the ground at the plane, you say the plane looks curved?
No, the plane, like the contrails, like when planes that go up, like the
the contrails look curved. I don't know. When it comes to the atmosphere, there's too many things to factor in. The bigger question there would be when the plane goes off into the distance, and we have wonderful videos on perspective on this. Again, if it actually was curved, the ball was curved, eventually that plane would create the illusion that it's crashing nose first into the horizon if you had a decent enough camera. That never happens. It just goes off at that angle, you know, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and then just fades away into what, 1 or 2 pixels, and then it's done. So as far as the trails being curved, I don't know. Send me a picture of it if you think they're curved. In fact, that's also something I threw out there. People that were on an airplane, you know, because people say they see the curvature from every altitude, even though Neil Tyson said on a stage not that long ago, he said he was talking about the Red Bull jump. If you already looked that one up, which he goes, because the Red Bull jump shows this severe curvature of the Earth. And he goes, that's the most scientifically dishonest thing ever. He goes, they're just using a fisheye lens, a wide angle lens. And I've talked to producers that were tied to that in some fashion. And I go, why did you use that lens? He goes, because it's a better shot. Even though he goes, you cannot see. In fact, Neil Tyson said you cannot see the curve from 130,000 feet. So why do I have all these people that say they can see the curvature from the airplane? Is Neil Tyson wrong? Because he's the world's most famous media scientist. Don't know. Anyway, but if you have pictures of the contrails, send them to me. I don't want to get into chemtrails.
Gotcha.
Okay, Armstead.
So, if the Earth is flat, then how does the sea have like thousands of feet in depth?
If the Earth is flat, then how? Sorry, good question. It doesn't mean, all right, when I say flat, I don't mean tabletop on all areas flat. Of course, there's hills and valleys and the water settles. The water is absolutely flat, but treat it no different than you would a video game model, which is the edges line up. By that, I mean, all edges on all sides, they line up. As far as the little hills and valleys and all the crevices in the inside, oh no, you can do anything you want. No different than when we make simulations. Again, I was in the game industry for a number of years, which is, like Warcraft, great example. Like in Warcraft, there's all sorts of hills and valleys, or GTA or Fortnite or whatever, hills and valleys, but people don't realize if you pull back far enough, the whole thing is just this giant square and all the edges line up, all of them. And there's no dome. It's called the skybox system. You can look that up. We've been using the skybox system for decades. So short version, no, it's when I say flat, I mean the edges, but everything in the inside, no, you can do all sorts of little bumps and fiddly bits.
Do you have a follow-up? No? All right. Ms. Thyman.
I have a question for what you said, how the sun, it doesn't set, it just kind of fades away.
Yes.
How does it then rise on the other side?
Same thing. Same thing. If you have the genius of the design, again, I'm going to give all credit to God here for the genius of the design, which is because the atmosphere is so thick, when the sun comes into view, it's so bright that it creates the illusion that it's rising because of the atmosphere you're in. Now, if you were in a vacuum, it would probably look completely different, but we're not, thank God. But same sort of thing. So I will send some videos to your teacher that show it fading away. Same sort of thing when it's coming in. That's a great question, though, as far as I don't think we've got the video of we always focus on the one that it's setting. But as far as the sunrise, I will ask our people to do a sunrise for you. How's that?
Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, that I don't get a lot of novel questions, and I love that perspective. It's like, hey, is the sunrise same? Oh wow, I don't think anyone's actually taken that one. So yeah, we'll do a sunrise.
Right.
Okay, so if the Earth were flat, then why do the seasons change yearly?
Dun dun dun. Okay, so when it comes to the seasons, great question, by the way. Think of it, so I know you can't probably see the arms very well, but think of it like oh boy, I'm going to date myself here. Has anyone actually used a record player, like a needle on a record player? You know how it works, right? So a needle on a record player, it's never the same path twice. Think of that, where the sun, not only is it traveling over us, like a mobile above a child's crib, but it's also changing its path. But to that point, the seasons, I mentioned this on different things, the seasons are also not just exclusively affected by the sun rays. There are systems in our world which generate even more energy. The upper jet stream, for example, which is the high altitude air currents, which travel hundreds of miles an hour. We didn't know that until we started getting into this. And then the biggest one would be the water. Look up something called the underwater conveyor system, which conducts most of the energy, the heat transfers in the world. So between all those and then changing the sun path, that's where you get your seasons. It's not because of a silly little tilt from 93 million miles away that create the seasons.
Go ahead.
Has anybody ever seen the ice walls or anything with how
The closest anybody can get, you can. By the way, you sound young. How old are you?
12?
Oh my God. So, but it's a good question. Out of the mouth of babes. So, you can, if you want, spend 15. I do not recommend it. You could spend $15,000 and go to Antarctica and go to the coastline of Antarctica. In fact, you could don't even bother. Just type into Google coastline of Antarctica. There's your ice wall. However, that's just the start of Antarctica. I mean, that's just when you get there. And then once you get on top of that, again, it's only a couple hundred feet. Then it slopes up to 14,000 feet, which is an amazing. It's the highest continent by twice. But nobody wants to talk about that. Every other continent is below 7,000 feet, I think, as an average height. But no, Antarctica, double that. Why? Well, because it's meant to. It screams go away. By the way, I think that's also one of God's little designs, which is God doesn't want people going to the edge of this thing, to the white part. So what he does is if you take a ship out there, you can ask any ship captain. It's like it gets colder and colder, then you see icebergs. If that doesn't turn around, you get to the ice wall. If that doesn't turn you around, there's no food to eat. I mean, there's water to drink, but there's no food to eat. There's no animal life. And then there's no roads. There's no trees to cut down for anything. The whole place just screams go away. Which is why it is the least traveled place in the world.
All right. Our next question is, what is underneath the Earth then? Is there a hot core? How long or how big is the outside of the Earth?
Good question. Okay, so your science books, and again, I don't know what you teach in your school. Your science books will show that wonderful cross section of the Earth, which we've all seen, where you have the crust and then red and orange and yellow and this white center, right? 4,000 miles supposedly to the center of the Earth. And all those bands are perfectly 1,000 miles. There's nothing special. It's like, wow. It's like, how do you know this, right? How deep is the deepest probe we ever sent? Is it 2,000? Is it 1,000? Is it 100? Is it 10? No, the deepest hole ever drilled is only 8 miles. And the Russians and the Germans tried to break that for years, not months. They tried it for years, could not get past it. Does it get hotter as you get down to 8 miles? Yes, which is a little unusual that the bits would start melting at 8 miles. But mainstream science will say in Wiki, you can look it up. It's in the fine print. It's like they have no idea what the core of the Earth looks like at all. They're just extrapolating from volcanoes and molten rock. They do not know. In fact, if a science book wanted to be completely intellectually honest, they would have a question mark in the center of the globe. But science won't do that. They hate putting question marks anywhere. So it's like, this is what it is, until they're absolutely wrong. And then they pivot. And it's like, nope, this is what it is now. So to your question, how thick is the Earth? How thick is the flat Earth? I don't know. It's probably not this thick. That's for sure. The only reason this one's this thick is because I've got some physical stuff in here which make the arms move and things light up. So it could be, less than 50 miles thick. I don't know. But what we can say is that science doesn't know either, because the deepest hole science has ever drilled is 8 miles. So I can't confirm anything below 8 at all. And that helps us more than it helps them.
No, I just have another question. Okay. So earlier today, you were talking about how the sun is just like small and really close to us.
Yes.
But if that were to be true, then why does it take light a little over 8 minutes to get to us if the sun is really close?
So the question is, why, if the sun is really close, why does it take 8 minutes for the sunlight to get here? 8 minutes according to whom? By the way, that's proper grammar. Why? How do you know this? Because you read that. Exactly. It's like says science says that the sun is 93 million miles away. And of course, if it was 93 million miles away, then yeah, it would take a few minutes for the light to get here. However, we say it's not. So it just isn't. There is no, the speed of light is irrelevant in here. And there is no, the sun is very, very close and super, super small. That's all I can tell you. And by the way, the follow-up question to yours would be just about anything they talk about the sun. It's like, how could the sun be hundreds of thousands of miles wide if it's really, really close? It's like, it's not. It's tiny. And by the way, that's also, I got to get this point out. That's what we do when we build simulations. Look, I come from that world where we started putting suns into the sky when the video games were new. And it's like, well, how do we replicate the sun that's 93 million miles away? It's like, well, we just make it super, super small. No one's going to know. We're not going to allow the players to go anywhere near the sun. So why would we make it really, really big and really, really far away? That's just a waste of space. And by the way, that goes into the illusion or the test that God makes. This isn't necessarily a deception of God. I consider this a test, which is if you can fake space, if you can get 99.99% of the people of the world to believe in space, you got to remember who told you there was space to begin with. God didn't tell you there was space and planets. Just said there was a sun and the moon, light up, greater light, lesser light, all that stuff. It was NASA that came up with the whole solar system thing. That said, oh, yeah, we've been to Jupiter. Here's pictures of Mars. And they were the ones supposedly took pictures of it. Sorry, I rambled. Go ahead.
Well, okay, everybody's going to get mad at me now, but we do have to wrap it up. Thank you.
Oh, no. Okay.
I do have one last question for you.
Yeah.
It would be a lot cheaper for us to just sail to the edge of the earth. The military's not all around, and just get pictures and get proof. Then NASA, and everybody else spending billions of dollars thus far on this whole great scam. So why haven't we just sailed off of Alaska and gone to the edge and taken pictures and videos?
Well, Alaska wouldn't be where you would want to go. That's the North Pole, but that's fine. When it comes to the powers that be, the people that run our lives from high up places, not God, a couple levels below God, they control, power and control are very, very important to them, and they're not going to tell you what this world is unless they can use it to their advantage. So if they found out, think about this. This is the last statement I'll make. If you found out, this could be an essay question for your class. If you found out the world was a snow globe in 1960, would you tell people, and how would you do it? And keep in mind what might happen if you do it, because people are panicky. People don't, they like the things the way they are. I'll quote them. I'm sorry, this is how I'll end with a quote from Men in Black, the first one. It's like, a person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. Are we just a box of kittens that are being protected from, from what's outside of this place? Or are we a box of scorpions that should never, ever be let out ever because we do bad things? I don't know, probably both. So, and sorry, my last thing for you guys, my closing remark is this. Everything I've been telling you today, take with a grain of salt. Do not believe what I said just because I said it, right? Do your own research, figure it out for yourself. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to persuade you. I'm just here to throw out some ideas and let you run with it. And honestly, look at this stuff. Some of you'll get it, a lot of you won't, or you'll be like, it's just not for me. But the world will change, and think of how cool it would be if there was way more proof of God than is currently out there now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sargent. Thank
Happy
you.
Happy to do it. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, I will stop the recording, and then I will send you a copy today.
Thank you very much. I hope you have a